Why are some NFL running backs unstoppable on the field in an open space, while others start to slow down and deteriorate by age 27? The answer is in part due to what's inside the muscle. Today we're going to break down the different muscle fiber types, what they do, how they differ, and ultimately how they fuel and drive some of the most explosive athletes in the NFL. We're going to be looking at three muscle fiber types. The first one is going to be type 1, then our type 2A, and then type 2B. All of these muscle fiber types have different roles, but we're going to start with our type 1 muscle fibers. These fibers are known as endurance specialists. They have a lot of blood coming to them. They're very high in mitochondrial density, which, as most of us hopefully remember from middle school or high school biology, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. But these muscles are also innervated by smaller motor units, which is important because they're going to then produce less of a forceful contraction, but they're able to do so over and over and over again. So they're resisting fatigue and are able to do these high endurance activities. What they're not great at is generating a lot of force. And part of the reason why they're able to produce multiple contractions over a long period of time and not get as tired is because of the fact that they create energy via oxygen. So the blood brings that oxygen and nutrients to the muscle fiber cells, and they're able to take that oxygen and turn it into energy at a very efficient rate. Ultimately, this is important from a running back aspect because not only do they have to be explosive, but they have to make it the entire game. So now for the 50 plus snaps that they're on the field, these muscles are what's helping to control their posture, their joint stability, and allow them to actually perform over the course of an entire game. The next muscle fiber we're going to go into are type 2A fibers. These type 2A fibers are hybrids. They're fast, they're strong, and they're surprisingly fatigue resistant. So these muscle fibers are a little bit larger and they're innervated by larger motor units, which allows for a more powerful contraction. However, they're not quite as powerful as our type 2B fibers, but they are more fatigue resistant. So they're kind of this hybrid between the type 1 and then the type 2B. The reason why this occurs is that these muscle fibers still have some mitochondria to help with the oxidative energy process, but they also have a lot of glycogen stores, which is our anaerobic or without oxygen pathway. So they can use a combination of both of these energy producing pathways to contract and to perform different actions. These muscle fibers also fire faster, which results in more powerful contractions compared to our type 1 oxidative fibers. This results in a nice balance between power as well as fatigue resistance and endurance, which allows these running backs to still produce explosive actions later in the game. Whether it's the first quarter or the fourth quarter, they can still produce a powerful juke or cut or spin move to get past the defender and continue to move into the open field. These type 2A fibers are critical for not only lateral jukes and 10-yard bursts, where they're a little bit more explosive, but also for a strong finish across a long run or finishing out a play as they're starting to resist fatigue and you need still some power and burst, but you need the endurance to finish out that long play and score that touchdown. Finally, we have the powerhouse, the type 2B fibers. These are your max force output, fast contraction, power specialists that drive that initial explosion for power athletes. These type 2B fibers have the largest motor units. So they have the largest initial contraction and powerful contraction producing the most force. These muscle fibers also are supplied with less blood and thus they have less mitochondria to use oxygen as a pathway to create energy. These muscle fibers are primarily going to be using your anaerobic glycolytic pathways as well as your ATP-PC system, which is for movements and explosive actions usually under 5 to 10 seconds. These type 2B fibers allow for a rapid release and then uptake of calcium ions to allow for a very explosive and forceful contraction, but this results then in fatigue setting in significantly sooner than a type 1 fiber, which doesn't have that calcium uptake as well. For NFL running backs, these are the fibers that are going to drive that initial acceleration, that initial cut off the play that gives them that opportunity to shoot through the hole and then continue to accelerate and move more into your type 2A and then type 1 fibers. For most NFL running backs, initially, especially in the combine and in early stages of their NFL careers, they're going to have a very high concentration of these type 2 fibers, especially with optimal training. Over time though, as these running backs age, they're going to start to have less and less of these type 2B fibers. So why do these different muscle fiber types tie into why running backs start to decline? Well, as you age, gradually your type 2B fibers start to decline in concentration and your body starts to shift more towards a type 1 endurance-based fiber, which we already talked about, right? So that change can occur from a multitude of different reasons, whether it's hormonal changes, motor neuron decline, decreased efficiency of the neuromuscular system, or reduced training intensity, amongst other things. That starts to feed this change into type 1 fibers. You can try to hold off that decline by resistance training, particularly focusing on different types of power training and explosiveness, but ultimately over time, especially between the ages of 27 to 30, is when you start to see a greater shift in type 2B fibers closer to type 1. And that's where that age kind of correlates with NFL running backs, where you start to see some of that decline. So whether they're shooting through a small little gap to score a 3-yard touchdown or trying to break off an 80-yard run, NFL running backs require a perfect storm of muscle fibers working together and performing not only at their best, but in a specific role. And this information is key to not only understanding the performance of an NFL running back, but why these running backs start to decline around that 27, 28 to 30 age range. In the next video, we're gonna be talking about neuromuscular efficiency, which we've already talked about a little bit in coordination with the muscle fiber types, but we're gonna be looking at specifically the ability of the neurons to fire appropriately to activate the musculature and provide the right contraction. So make sure you tune in for the next video, subscribe, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.